Hello and welcome everyone to the Cybersecurity Forum. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to get into the Zoom room here. Right. Awesome. Looks like we're all here. Well, welcome everyone. Appreciate you joining us at the Cybersecurity Forum. As you all know, the Pacific Northwest has been a site for a pilot program to help manufacturers comply with cybersecurity requirements. And based on this feedback from this program, we're launching these monthly check-in to provide relevant information and lots of time for your questions to be answered by our cybersecurity expert panel. Today's program is supported by Impact Washington, Oregon Manufacturing Extension Partnership, or OMEP, TechHelp Idaho, and the Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center. So thank you all for helping us host this program. I'd also like to thank Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance for being a marketing partner with this event, as well as my organization, Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition. I'd like to welcome some people here from our partner organizations. Edward Vasco with TechHelp. If you are online, please wave or chat your information there. Dale King with PNAA, and Carol Bladen, Deloitte Wolf, and Jeff Lawrence with Impact Washington. So please feel free to say hi to the group there. I'm Kate Canapo. I'm with Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition. PNDC's mission includes bringing more defense and security contracts to the Pacific Northwest and supporting a connected supply chain for these industries. And as we know, cybersecurity is an important part of a solid and resilient supply chain for the Department of Defense and beyond. So we're so excited to be able to host this. Something that we like to do here, because protecting the Department of Defense supply chain is also protecting the women and men who serve our country, we'd like to invite any veterans joining us here today to chat their branch of service, really giving us a name and a face to who we're protecting. So please chat away and let us give you a big thank you for your service. Really appreciate you joining us here today. Great, thank you. This might not be new information for everybody, but in case you're new to these discussions, I wanted to give a little background. You might have heard about CMMC, or the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. This is an evolving cybersecurity requirement, and it's a framework like many other cybersecurity requirements. It's all about protecting your business. The Department of Defense has selected the CMMC accreditation body to develop this framework. It requires audits to 5 levels of cybersecurity maturity for all defense suppliers. That's direct, or if you're in the supply chain. And although the CMMC audit infrastructure is being developed, now is really the time to get compliant. It's risk management, and regardless of the different maybe requests you're getting to identify your CMMC maturity level, your SPURS cybersecurity score, NIST 800-171, these are all referencing holistic cybersecurity programs for your business. So good job being here today, and we look forward to whether this is a new cybersecurity journey for you or continuing. I'm going to pull up our agenda here today. We're starting things off with Jeff Lawrence with Impact Washington. We'll talk a little bit about the cybersecurity journey. We have Ace Swerling with CORTAC Group. We'll be talking about ransomware. Just some information. I know that's been in the news lately, and part of your cybersecurity journey will include things you can do to help protect your organization against ransomware, which is a very real threat. And then we are excited to have our cybersecurity expert panel joining us to answer your questions. These programs will repeat monthly. At the end of this, we'll pull up a schedule and you can register for any that work with your schedule. Each one will have different resources and different topics. So we invite you to join them all and ask your questions as your questions evolve. For asking questions, you can chat those or we'll give you time to unmute and you can ask them live to the audience. I'm going to bring up this slide real quick before I introduce Jeff Lawrence. A lot of the work that has been done on the cybersecurity pilot program was kind of identifying where the manufacturers in the Pacific Northwest were, meeting those organizations where you're at. And so I pull up this slide because I think a lot of you might identify with being at different places in this cybersecurity journey, whether there's a lot of confusion, we're hoping to get you towards understanding. You might be asking, why do I need to comply with this? I think there's probably a lot of good reasons that we'll hear today, but we want to move you to how you can be compliant and really giving you the tools to do that. And then we do have some roadblocks identified. I think a lot of people will recognize these: fear of unknown cost, no internal project manager. We want to encourage you to start. There's a lot of today. Start with a gap analysis, a plan of action and milestone, a cyber system security plan. These are all things that can help you take what is a big daunting project and make it step by step. So I'm going to introduce Jeff Lawrence with Impact Washington now, who will talk a little bit more about some of the results of the cybersecurity pilot program that they undertook. Jeff, I'll take it away.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kate, and thanks to everybody for joining to talk about this important topic. We did have this pilot program that was funded through the DoD and the Washington State Department of Commerce, in which we were supporting members of the DoD supply chain in the state of Washington to advance their cybersecurity maturity and to be able to get on a path to compliance with DoD standards. We are continuing this program both for DoD suppliers, but also for DoD manufacturers, because the MEPs are focused on manufacturing. The pilot program was a little broader in that it was incorporating all members of the supply chain. Further support that the MEPs will be giving will be for manufacturers, but will go beyond the DoD manufacturers and will encompass all manufacturers in the state of Washington and in these other MEPs that are represented as well. We were able to give support in the way of grant monies to 36 members of the Washington State DoD supply chain in this pilot program. And what we learned, a couple of things I think would be useful for the greater audience, is that number one, there's an expanding variety of assistance for all sizes of manufacturing for DoD suppliers and others. We partnered not only with PNDC and PTAC and the Department of Commerce and PNAA and others, but we also were very pleased to have partnered with many private cybersecurity companies who were helping their clients move toward their improvement in their cybersecurity posture. And a lot of them are represented today, and you'll hear from today. But we were very pleased and I think gratified to know that there really is an understanding among not only the ecosystem partners like PNDC and PTAC and Impact Washington and Department of Commerce, but also in the private sector, who are dedicated to finding ways to make access to support more accessible for everybody, because that's important. As Kate outlined, some of the impediments that we identified at the beginning of these engagements were, hey, how much is this going to cost me? I don't know. I don't have this budgeted. Also, I don't have the staff to do it. I don't understand it. It's a real heavy lift, and it is a heavy lift. There's a lot of information, and so getting an expert on your side is very important. So we were very gratified to see that there's a lot of creativity that went on during the course of this engagement, where there's a drive to develop new and innovative, cost-effective solutions to be able to serve the growing market of the small to medium-sized manufacturers. And we were, as we went forward with this grant, we were able to supply more. The original grant design had us providing support for 19, and we were able to expand that to 35 because of the great support of our private partners in becoming creative and developing new ways to support. So a couple of the other real benefits are that, as I mentioned, this is a complex area. And so by having a cybersecurity expert on your side and kind of guiding you through this, there's a flexibility and responsiveness to answering questions from clients, and to be flexible in the way that these projects were delivered. And so we understand that manufacturers and companies of all stripes, both in the DoD and outside of the DoD, wear many hats, and you were not cybersecurity experts. But to have a cybersecurity expert in your stable that you're able to help to guide, that you're able to get to help to guide you and to ask questions of is extremely important. So just very, very generally, for a cost of between $7,000 and $15,000 for support by one of these experts and about 150 hours of staff time, we found that we're able to make significant progress on your cybersecurity journey by completing a gap analysis, creating a draft system security plan, a plan of action and milestones, and then going on to develop a roadmap for compliance. And in the instance of this grant, it was toward compliance and toward audit readiness for CMMC certification. But in the case of manufacturers more broadly, really the governing standard still is the NIST 800-171. That's kind of the standard of cybersecurity for companies throughout the country. And so the objective is to move toward compliance with those standards. And what we found in our surveys at the end of our engagements is that while this help was very important to get going, almost all of the clients felt that an ongoing relationship with an expert would likely be important in order to continue their journey. Just as most companies have a relationship with an attorney, if they're needed, to have an expert on your side that you're able to contact if you have questions about cybersecurity, having a relationship with an expert is extremely important, because there are going to be questions that come up. This is a very rapidly changing area, and it's complex. And so to have the relationship with the people who do this day in and day out, and they're the experts on it, is extremely important. So we're continuing this, as I mentioned, so for ongoing cybersecurity support in the state of Washington, we recommend that you register your interest. If you're outside, check in with your local MEP center. If you're listening from a state other than the state of Washington, check in with your MEP center. We're all working collaboratively to help support manufacturers in this area. But businesses in Washington can register your interest with Impact Washington, where you get periodic cybersecurity updates from us and our partners. There still is some financial support that's available now, and those figures that I gave you previously on the previous slide were before any kind of grant support. So there is some additional grant support now. We do have a little bit of grant support, which is available until September 23rd. So if you're on your journey and already ready to go, we still have some grant support. So please be sure to make note of that in your statement of interest at the registration link below. And we're anticipating there will be future grant support in the future. We've applied for some additional grant monies. We're very hopeful and are very we believe that we have a very good chance of getting additional grant monies to take us through several more years, because this is an area which is going to become more important, and more companies are going to need support getting going. We also, as a part of our grant program, we did some DFARS CMMC readiness courses. This is DoD cybersecurity requirement readiness courses. These are also applicable to others outside of the DoD supply chain, and there's no cost for manufacturers in Idaho, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington. So you can sign up through one of our partners, the Ignite Institute. Maybe hearing from Max Alec later on, but we're still offering those courses, and we'll be expanding those in the future also to incorporate other topics. But they're great for anybody, because it's a self-guided course. Goes through, there are 2 courses available. There's a high-level course, and there's a more directed course to help you get on your way with curated resources and so forth to help you get on your way. Also, we're going to continue these cybersecurity forums in partnership with other MEP centers and PNDC and PNAA every month through the end of November. So you can register on the PNDC website, and please continue to show things are changing. I'm sure there will be some changes in that time. And also tell other companies or other clients or whatever in your supply chain about this as well, because this is it's in everyone's best interest for as many manufacturers in the area to become cybersecurity compliant. So with that, I will pass it back to Kate.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Really appreciate it. And I should tell you all to open up your chat window. Bailey Simpson from our office here at PNDC is chatting the definition to acronyms for you, which is very helpful. I know this is an acronym-rich program, so hopefully that will help you all out. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Ace Swerling with CORTAC Group, who's going to talk to us all about ransomware and a little bit about how you can protect your business. So Ace, I'm going to go ahead and let you show your screen here.
All right. Thank you so much, Kate. I am bringing up the presentation. Would you please let me know if it's coming through okay?
Looks great. Thank you.
Fantastic. So thank you, Kate and Jeff and everybody else at the PNDC and Impact Washington for allowing me and CORTAC Group to participate, and also thanks to everybody participating for listening. I am Ace Swerling. I'm the Director of Security Solutions at the CORTAC Group, which is a consultancy based out of Issaquah, Washington. We're really focused a lot on helping the defense industrial base sort of deal with this cybersecurity challenge, not only the regulatory compliance environment represented by DFARS 800-171, CMMC, all of that, but more than anything about helping you get your business safe, secure, so that you can go off and win more business. And so really grateful for the opportunity to talk about ransomware. It's certainly been something that's been around for a while, but the activity has increased, and there's been a lot of talk about that in the news. So let's kind of dive in and talk about ransomware in the context of cybersecurity. And so giving you the bottom line up front, cybercrime is really increasing. Again, I've been doing security for the better part of 25 years, and the threats, the attacks are increasing every year. Cybercrime is estimated to cost $10.5 trillion a year worldwide by 2025. And the spend to protect against that is about 1 to 1.7% per year of the damage inflicted, which is really saying that the entire world, not only the defense industrial base in the United States, but the entire world is underinvesting in this spot. Ransomware really is just a subset of larger cyber crime. The truth is that it is very, very profitable and easy to execute. There's been talk for a number of years, for example, that certain countries around the world that are under sanctions from the United States are using ransomware to generate hard currency. So, you know, there's organized crime. It's really very substantial. And one of the challenges is that everybody is a target, assuming that you have anything of value, of course, which I assume that you do. But a lot of people think that it can't really happen to them. And so wanted to encourage you to think about ransomware as being kind of like a digital mugging. And anybody connected to the internet, quite honestly, is living in some respects in a little bit of a bad neighborhood. And so you can be safe, you can keep yourself safe, but you do need to take action and recognize that it really can happen. Okay, so the bigger picture, for the defense industrial base specifically, cyberspace really is a battlefield. And again, ransomware, it's just one way that can show up. You know, historically, the DIB has really kind of lived safely on the home front, but economic warfare is becoming, you know, really kind of a new modality for battle. Our adversaries, the United States' adversaries, see suppliers' intellectual property, your intellectual property, as treasure, and they see business disruption as a win. So messing with you helps them. And so we were alluding to, you know, CMMC, the DoD's intention behind that. I don't want to talk about this too much and to distract us from ransomware, but just recognize that the DoD is not regulating you just for fun, but that this IP, a lot of the IP that you're creating, and especially the IP you're creating on their behalf, the DoD has a vested interest in it and wants to protect it just like you do. So the interests are really kind of converging. And this is why is that cyberspace really has become a battlefield, and like it or not, you know, we're all kind of combatants in that regard. Okay, so what is ransomware? Historically, people used to worry about viruses, and you can really kind of think about ransomware as being kind of a more aggressive virus. Viruses used to just kind of, you know, sort of mess with people. They were kind of more irritating, and now they're using it to generate cash directly. It's become very common over the last 18 months. As soon as COVID lockdowns hit, ransomware went up substantially. Nation states behind ransomware use the distraction and as an opportunity to launch more ransomware attacks. The way that it works oftentimes is that a user will install malicious software by accident, of course, usually by clicking a web link or by opening an infected document. We've all seen these, you know, we're familiar with them, but traditional anti-malware oftentimes doesn't fully protect. I won't go into the technical details, but certainly traditional anti-malware is important, but it often ends up being insufficient. So the way that it works is that this user clicks on this link, the software encrypts the data that the user has access to, and it does it over several days or even weeks or months so that people don't necessarily notice. When it's done, the bad guy notifies you, and demands a ransom, they've done research on you and figures out a percentage of revenue, usually a couple of percent. They want it to be high enough to be interesting, but not so high that you'll tell them to go pound sand. So they're very sophisticated in figuring out how much to ask for. They will even negotiate the ransoms. So, you know, these people really are criminals. As we said, it's very sophisticated. There's organized crime behind it, and it's oftentimes backed by nation states. Recent ransomware examples, I've included a lot of this for reference. You can kind of read it at your leisure later as you review the deck. Colonial Pipeline, I will say, represents, I think, a watershed moment for the United States and the United States government. I think we're all familiar with how it, a little while back, shut down the largest petroleum pipeline on the US East Coast. So we weren't so affected out west out here, but it definitely did drive up the price of gasoline across the country. Colonial did end up paying a $4.4 million ransom. That should be a $4.4 million ransom. And it turns out that it didn't actually help them because it ran too slowly to restore operations. Interesting also, the FBI did retrieve $2.3 million of the ransom. Other things to note, there's a bunch of other ransomware attacks. Biden recently met with Vladimir Putin from Russia and confronted him on ransomware attacks originating in Russia. And then also companies have been paying ransom, but there's a news article that I'll invite you to click on later talking about how what they're finding is that paying ransoms oftentimes results in further attacks. Bad guys kind of watch each other. And so if one guy gets a ransom, then they'll say, you know, another guy will come along and say, well, I think maybe I'll just, you know, do another mugging. I want to give an example of a company that was hit by a ransomware attack in the defense industrial base. Behringer Precision is a manufacturing company in the defense industrial base based out of Denver, so not in our geographic area. But they were hit by a ransomware called Doppelpaymer. And they not only encrypted Behringer's data and held it for ransom, but they also extracted the data, which is kind of a relatively new form of attack. And what this does is it says, hey, not only can you not use your data, but if you don't pay, then we're going to publish all of your intellectual property on the internet so that everybody has access to it. And so the idea is to provide, you know, to apply more extortionary pressure. The lost data did affect contracts with Tesla, SpaceX, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and it did include ITAR information. So this, you know, so this is really real. So 3 steps for keeping safe. The main one that I want to encourage people to consider is to avoid the problem overall. A lot of people just kind of regard ransomware as a cybersecurity issue, meaning that they think about it only as technical. And I want to encourage people to recognize that cybersecurity is more than anything a business and operational issue that happens to manifest itself within a technical environment. So what that means is that the most effective thing that you can do to keep safe is to avoid the problem altogether, which means training your people on what malicious links look like, on what malicious documents look like, so that they won't, they'll be less likely to open them and install the stuff. Now, of course, this is never going to be perfect, but avoiding a lot of this stuff can reduce your workload on the technical level and just keep you much safer overall. The second step is protecting the computing environment consistent with security best practice. At this point, that is NIST 800-171. It is CMMC that we're all contractually obliged to comply with regardless. Now, one thing to recognize is that the 800-171 and CMMC controls don't explicitly call out protections that will protect you, that will keep you safe from ransomware. It does include things like software patching, configuration, anti-malware protection, and monitoring. It does not include things like email scanning, which end up being really, really important. The email scanning, basically what it does is any kind of email coming in, it'll scan links and it'll scan attachments and kind of what's called pre-detonate them. So it'll try opening them, scanning them, and seeing if there's any malicious activity. Products that can do this include Proofpoint or MS Defender 0365, anti-malware protection, Symantec, MS Defender, we're familiar with those. But it's also important to have EDR, which is Endpoint Detection and Response, which works in conjunction with anti-malware scanning. Again, don't want to go into too much technical detail, but traditional anti-malware kind of is based on signatures. And a lot of the ransomware isn't really so much signature based anymore. That is to say that it runs more in RAM as opposed to something on a disk. Again, I know that that's kind of technical detail, but it just recognize that it works a little bit differently. Monitoring, we do that with a SIEM like Splunk or Azure Sentinel. What this is monitoring your environment for malicious activity, but recognize that it's not really sufficient to just collect the logs. You have to review them, and a lot of times reviewing them requires a pretty good level of expertise. Cutting to the chase on this, many organizations, including large ones, struggle to do this well. I'll just kind of suggest that this is something that is probably most effectively done by an outside organization. CORTAC doesn't do this, but if you're so inclined, we can refer you to folks that can help you with this. And of course, mom and apple pie kinds of things like, limiting administrative permissions on end users, limiting access to data, all of which is required by 800-171. And then also a really important thing is to keep offline backups and test your recovery procedures. If you have online backups, the ransomware can reach into those. And there have been many organizations that got hit by ransomware and they're like, oh, well, I'm okay because I have a backup. And then they find that the backups have already been encrypted. And then the third step is detect, respond, and recover if you get hit. So detect if the ransomware is encrypting your data. This is really where the monitoring comes in. So if it looks like a bad guy is in there, recognize that it's happening, and then shut down the activity, which is really kind of where the EDR comes in. We encourage you, if it happens, to notify law enforcement, notify the FBI, and call an expert. Call, say, and again, CORTAC doesn't do incident response directly, but we can help you, help connect you to folks that can help you with that. And then also quickly focus on quickly recovering compromised data from the backups if you can. And the reason why I suggest that loops back to the bit about sort of avoiding, well, actually, I'll go into this. So generally want to avoid paying ransoms if you can. And I know that that kind of goes without saying, but when you get hit, as we noted, a lot of these organizations, these criminal organizations are trying to encourage you to pay the ransom. The watershed moment for me as a cybersecurity professional, the light bulb moment was recognizing that paying the ransom invites more attacks. So generally what not to do is don't rely on cyber insurance to protect you. The premiums really are increasing. They're expected to go up. Nobody's really sure, but they're expected to go up by 50 to 200% this year as a result of a lot of the activity that's been going on. And we're seeing insurance companies denying claims if insufficient care was taken. So basically, what that means is that if you don't have something like 800-171 in place and it's well implemented, the insurance companies are denying claims because it's like, hey, you didn't even try. Avoid paying the ransom. As we noted, the decryption processes can be too slow to recover anyway, and the orgs who paid the ransom are getting hit again. And also, don't believe that you won't get hit. The ransomware has become very profitable. There are a lot of incentives for attack, and quite honestly, it's really easy for bad guys to reach out across many, many organizations, cause a lot of damage, and the likelihood is that they're not going to be hit themselves. So if we talk about the digital mugging again, it's even easier than a mugging because, you know, if somebody sticks you up on the street, you know, you see their face, there's police around and all that. And on the internet, it's much more stealthy. And, you know, recognize once again that you really are a target if you have something of value. And, you know, you really wouldn't be in business if you didn't have something of value. The last takeaway is really, you know, hey, ask for help if you need it. There's a reason why people are getting hit by ransomware. We've talked about some of that, but a lot of it is that, you know, adequately protecting an IT environment requires expertise. The expertise, quite honestly, is kind of hard to come by, relatively hard to come by. And a lot of organizations struggle to build this expertise on their own at a reasonable cost. Encourage you to buy phishing and ransomware training for your people. My favorite, for what it's worth, is a company out of Florida called KnowBe4, but there are many others. Raise your security within your IT environment. We talked about that, but, you know, spend the money to protect yourself based on your exposure. So, you know, think about preparing for the worst. What are you willing to lose, and how quickly can you recover? And if you lost something, you know, how long could you continue to be in business if you lost it? Which goes to, you know, thinking about what would motivate you to pay a ransom. So if they took away your billing system, if they took away your IP, you know, would that motivate you to pay a ransom? And think about, you know, your cash flow loss from the loss of data, from the loss of a service, from the loss of the ability for you to connect with your customers. And also, could you make a legitimate insurance claim if you're hit, as we noted before? And you know, the last thing is consider ransomware as just one cybersecurity challenge. There are others as well, including, you know, folks just out and out stealing your data without telling you that they've encrypted it. You know, we've seen organizations be put out of business by, you know, financial attacks. So there are a lot of reasons to do this beyond just ransomware. But ransomware, you know, as a cybersecurity professional, I'm grateful that people are paying more attention to it, and it's providing an opportunity to consider the problem more broadly. So with that, I'll conclude and stop sharing and ask if there are any comments or questions.
Thank you so much, Ace. Great presentation.
Thank you.
I'll ask people to unmute or to type in a question. Do you have any? Ace, I know one thing I was thinking, the example you gave with, I believe it was Visser, how large of a company was that got hit by that ransomware attack? You know? Sound like they were very big.
I would, so very big to me means, you know, kind of a Lockheed Martin or Boeing. I would say my understanding is that they were, you know, several $100 million in revenue, custom contract manufacturer. And to be clear, I don't mean to pick on them. They were one organization that we found in the defense industrial base, you know, one that hit the news, and one that the FBI was paying particular attention to. The attack was quite substantial. not least because of the ITAR implications. But every organization of any size is potentially vulnerable to this.
Great. No, I'm looking at a lot of familiar faces on the line today and knowing it. I'm hoping that their businesses are protective, because it could be anyone, and I think that's the point. Let's see. A comment here that doesn't every company have something that is of value? Yeah, would definitely agree. That's probably why you're in business. One thing, if you could comment on, I know you gave a great slide and we will provide everybody with these slides of a list of technology things that you can do to prevent. What is your recommendation? I mean, I know there's a lot of things there.
So first thing to do,
start.
it's to start. Yeah.
Do something, make yourself less vulnerable.
So for ransomware specifically, put in something like the proof point, or the email scanning, right? The defender for O365. What I've found is that, especially in the defense industrial base, many organizations are Office 365, or now they've rebranded to Microsoft 365 customers. This would be kind of your E5 license, is where you get it. So a lot of folks are at E3. This gets you, the E5 license includes a lot of these security technologies, including more Defender. It includes Sentinel and all that. So I'm not shilling for Microsoft. I'm only bringing it up since so many people are Microsoft customers already. But that would be a place to start. That's going to filter your emails coming in, and sort of look for these malicious attacks. No technology is perfect. We really do need to have defense in depth. That is to say, multiple technical solutions, but that's where I would start.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ace. Really appreciate it. And I hope you are going to, if you haven't already, chat your contact information so people can follow up if they have additional questions.
Absolutely. Happy to talk with anybody about it, and recognize that, we in the CORTAC Group, again, not to shill, but just so that we're really focused more than anything on helping people solve this at a business level, and not only at a technical level. So we want to be, the glue to help you understand how to help you help your business to grow, and not just overwhelm you with a bunch of technologies.
Great. Thank you so much. I am going to invite our panelists up here. We have Raj Sindhu with Intech, Dave Miller with Future Network Inc., with How to GRC, and Max Aulich with Ignite Institute. So again, part of the program here today is make introductions to some companies that can help you. You don't have to go this alone. There is expert help, as Ace just presented, and any of our panelists here today. So I am going to invite each of our panelists to do a real quick 1-minute introduction at the most, and they can chat their contact information as well. Raj, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Raj Sindhu. I'm the founder and president of Intech Consulting. We're based out of Kent, Washington. We're at, I believe now, we just made an offer to our latest employee. We're at 16 people, and out of the 16, there's about 6 of us that serve on the cybersecurity and risk management team, which includes compliance and including CMMC management. And we specifically focus on manufacturing and manufacturing under compliance. And we have clients throughout Washington, Washington and Oregon. And we've been working with compliance and CMMC for, well, before it was called CMMC. And we're here to address any questions, and if anything comes up, please let me know.
Yeah. Dave Miller, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, hello. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Future Networking, F&I Inc., we're a cybersecurity company dedicated to securing our clients' data. Been in business since 1998. In fact, the owner started by solving the Y2K problem on servers way back when. So some of you remember that, probably a lot of you don't. But yeah, we're dedicated to the defense industry as well. You know, CMMC focused, been helping clients with that over approximately a year and a half since it was first released, involved with NIST 800-171 compliance requirement back in DFARS back in 2017 when it first became law, and continue to help clients today.
Great. Thank you. David Driggers, would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm David Driggers. I'm a partner at How to GRC. How to GRC is a cybersecurity advisory, education, and assessment firm. We do have provisional CMMC assessors on our team. We've got 3 of them now, and been performing CMMC and 800-171 readiness assessments in addition to our SOC 2, ISO 27001, and PCI advisory and assessment practices. So we are a candidate CMMC third-party assessor organization, and once accepted, we'll be performing level 1 and level 3 certification assessments.
Great, thank you, David. And Max Olek.
Thank you so much, Kate, for inviting me. My name is Max Olek. I'm one of the managing director here at a firm called Ignite. We help out a lot with the tier 1 suppliers. We're about 35 folks. We focus on corporate risk management, generally around finance, legal, and cyber, how it impacts that. My professional background, I started my career in the US Air Force as a security officer and then eventually transitioned over about 9 to 10 years ago. So very nice to meet you all and looking forward to the panel.
Great, thank you, Max. I encourage everyone to unmute and ask questions. We actually have some follow-up questions from our last event that I'm going to start things off with. Max, I think probably you are best able to answer this. Can you give some insight into how CMMC compliance is an allowable cost with defense or federal contracting?
Sure, absolutely, Kate. Thank you. So my experience is, my response and experience here is from directly working with the DoD, as we have a top secret clearance with direct contracts and things like that. But I also encourage you to couch my response with advisory from your legal and CFO. And if you're a CFO listening in, here's kind of what you need to know. So as a small business, when the government defines allowable costs without getting into the legalese, they just mean overhead. That's the simplified term for it. So your normal cost pools, your normal wrap rates, your overhead, it's reasonable and customary spend is what they're saying all of this cybersecurity stuff means. So it's bad news when you're a small business. So the government has kind of created an indirect mechanism to subsidize the market. And that's where the MEPs come in. Very important, because that is written into what's called a National Defense Authorization Act to help out the small businesses. But the way the money is flowing is not through cost recovery, it's through subsidization. So that's part A on allowable costs. There's always caveats. If you're a prime or you're a company that's kind of big and you may have the opportunity to be a prime, most likely as a CFO, you're implementing some sort of cost accounting standards by the defense DCAA, right? When you have a cost plus fee contract, you can actually allocate this cost separately and do a reimbursable contract. So those are the things we as a small business are exploring in terms of how to do that. Prerequisite to all of this, it requires quite a bit of work in your ERP, which we help out a lot of folks in terms of how to set up your ERP properly to do proper cost accounting for cybersecurity matters. And essentially, that is what you should be doing to prepare for future recovery of cost. If if you're not allocating your cost, time comes to recover that cost. So it comes down to really good cost accounting fundamentals around cybersecurity. For a small business that is growing, if you're a large business, you kind of have the upper advantage. A lot of Lockheed Martins, those kinds of folks, they're trying to figure out how to build some of these things in. So bad news for small guys. That's why we have the MEP network. But definitely, if you're a medium-sized business, start to kind of do an ERP analysis of if you have proper cost accounting standards, which I would be willing to bet that most companies are already doing that, considering manufacturing requires you to analyze cost of goods sold. So, so if you have more questions, I want to give time to my panelists, but if you have more questions, if you're a CFO and you're struggling with this, let us know. We can actually help you set up the system so that when the legislation is modified, hopefully in the future, you can recover some of these costs.
Great. Thank you so much, Max. I'm going to go ahead and take down this slide so we can see everybody here, have more of a conversation. Does anybody else have a question that they'd like to share with the with our panelists?
Dale King here.
Yeah.
Hey, Kate, how are you today?
Hi, Dale.
Thanks for doing all this work. This is such hard work. I've just had an ongoing question about costs and support for the enterprises to subsidize this. A lot of times when you're going for a defense contract, you're going to try to wrap in some of these costs with your proposals. And so how do we offset this for our defense contractors? How do they offset this so that they're not getting bumped right out of even the consideration because their costs are so high going for contracts? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Dale, I can try to answer that. I can offer up strategies here, what I've seen other CFOs kind of implement. So this is definitely going to impact your overhead and wrap rate, right? To the point where you could be out of a threshold where you're non-competitive. It can certainly do that. So what I've been working with on the CFOs is essentially, for now, you still need to do accounting as if it is cost plus fee. You still need to do accounting for it in that perspective. And when you have the opportunity to renegotiate, you should add those in. Most of the time, as a tier 2, 3, 4, you don't have any of those opportunities. However, this is a big enough impact to the defense industrial base that I know that several primes, several federally funded research institutes, this is exactly what they're doing, right? So we essentially need to adopt the practices from the enterprise side and start to bring them in so we can actually communicate this back. The issue I see, Dale, is that a lot of cyber professionals, we don't quite understand how to split enterprise level costs versus, cost of that goods sold, cost of that delivery, right? So those are some of the things that are still being discussed and figured out on how to actually split the cost. Or let's just say a simple control like know before awareness and training, right? So we are encouraging CFOs to do proper accounting. So when the opportunity arises, you can communicate it very clearly, and then your cost pools are consistent. If they're not consistent and you're adding in, that's when it's going to be difficult to do recovery. So it's almost like prep for recovery, but that recovery mechanism isn't there today.
Okay, so it's being discussed. It's going to get better.
That's what we're hoping. That is what we're hoping. They're going to have to do something, right? I mean, people talk a lot about risk management. I tell small businesses, small businesses are fundamentally a risk-taking endeavor. I mean, that's what it is. We do that all the time. But linking it all back to the financials on the cyber side, we need to be able to communicate this, articulate it back. So I'm hoping it changes. I'm an advocate of that, but we're still waiting.
May I jump in for just a moment? One thing is I'd encourage you to go back and find a video of the Senate Armed Services Committee meeting of, I think it was last month or so, but they were specifically talking about CMMC, and a lot of the senators were asking the panelists from the Biden administration and from the DoD about cost, and especially for small businesses. I'd say half of the senators were asking about, hey, how do these small businesses pay for this stuff? To opine for a moment, I didn't feel like the DoD representative had a great answer. He was basically saying, hey, we're going to give the small businesses a whole bunch of information. But I would, again, this is just me speculating, but I would expect some kind of cost recovery, subsidies, something to come out of this, because the Armed Services Committee, the senators were very serious about, about doing CMMC to protect the data. They were specifically talking about things like Colonial Pipeline. So I want to reinforce what Max is saying, is I think that things will shift.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Here's a good question. Once a company gains compliance with NIST 800-171, how close or how far will they be to compliance with CMMC level 3? David Driggers, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so as far as compliance, one, if you do fall under DFARS, you should be in compliance with 800-171 today. So if you're relatively comfortable with your current 800-171 posture, level 3 compliance for CMMC is kind of the next logical step. So the best thing that you can do right now, while CMMC is still kind of solidifying, is to go through and do that 800-171 self-assessment, upload that score to SPRS, and go down that path. So there's a very tight relationship between 800-171 and CMMC level 3. Any practitioners that have experience with 800-171, it'll also be a natural transition to CMMC compliance. So when you're talking to your MSPs, your MSSPs, 800-171 experience is a pretty good indicator that that they'll be a good partner for CMMC compliance and certification.
Great, great. Stephanie, you know how to answer that question. Ask that question. Does that answer your question, Stephanie Ramos?
Yes, that does. Thank you so much.
And Kate, just to add to that, we as a company had been going through, ourselves going through 800-171 process, and just like David mentioned, CMMC became very, very natural fit for us to proceed through. So it was a fairly easy transition, given that most of the compliance, the controls are the same or are in alignment. So it's a lot easier once you're at 800-171, but you need to get there first.
I can actually quantify it. 800-171 has 110 controls. CMMC maturity level 3 has 130 practices. All of the 110 controls are contained within maturity level 3. So there is, very much an overlap. CMMC maturity level 3 having 20 more required practices.
Great, thank you. There's a question. Are there unique cybersecurity requirements if I'm exporting? Dave Miller, did you want to see if you can take first step at that one?
Well, I guess the question is, what are you exporting? If it's bubble gum, probably not, except normal cybersecurity protection. If you're doing anything under EAR, there are needs to protect that information. If you're doing anything under ITAR, you're probably also required to do, follow the CMMC framework or NIST DFARS today. So yeah, there's very specific requirements as far as your data encryption, as far as transferring of files, as far as who's receiving those files. So yeah, it goes pretty deep. The good news is that the encryption standard is essentially the same for CMMC. for cybersecurity for ITAR. So at least you're not, cross-purposing what you're doing in regards to your cybersecurity if you're requiring both CMMC and ITAR cybersecurity.
Right. Any of our other panelists have anything to add on that? Great. This is a common question we get. I've been told that moving to a cloud-based IT system will get me compliant. Is that true? Raj, do you want to take a first stab at that one?
Sure. Well, it depends. Even using Office 365, whatever basic licensing that you're using, if you are transferring CUI or FCI through email, obviously you are not compliant. So it all depends on what type of data you have, and if the data requires compliance, then you need to have a specific license, or you need to have a specific environment, or if you're an AWS or Azure environment using any of those cloud services, you have to do your due diligence, make sure that you look at whether the organization is compliant, and so there's some legwork that you have to do, but generally I would say no until you get to the layer that does protect, and that's sometimes through licensing, or sometimes through just using a different product.
I think just to add to what Raj said there, compliance and running a security program isn't really something that you can just throw technology towards. So it's a combination of people, processes, and technology all working together to actually deliver the posture that we're looking for when we come in and do certification assessments. So there's no one single technology magic bullet to solve all of this.
Great.
I actually, just to add to that, Kate, I had an interesting conversation at a PNDC networking event last night where one of the folks I was talking to said, well, I know that the cloud is prone to attacks, and I can't see it, so therefore I'm keeping everything on-prem. And so I started asking questions like, well, do you run your email on-prem? Yes. And I said, well, do you know that there was a huge vulnerability with the Microsoft Exchange a couple weeks ago? And her eyes lit up and said, oh yeah, I think our IT guy got it. So my point is, sometimes it's not good to be on-prem. You need to make sure you have the proper processes, people, standards in place in order to be secure. So the right answer here isn't bring everything in-house or take everything to the cloud. It all depends on your situation, and you need to have a professional, somebody that understands, look at it and assess and advise you.
Kate, one further comment, because we get this question a lot, and I think the question is coming out of like, hey, if I go buy this GCC high thing, am I good to go, right? Because the idea is I click a button and it's all good, right? And it's all in the cloud, and I don't have to worry about it. It's sovereign, it's US only. Those are the comments we get. But then when we pull back the layers and inspect the business, your electronic manufacturer, you can't do it because of your systems have to be on-prem. And then furthermore, if they could just be 100% on GCC high, you ask an attorney, you get a totally different answer. Attorney has nothing to do with technology, in a sense that they have to prove out compliance, which is an ongoing argument in their perspective, right? So back to what David said and kind of what Raj alluded to, this question is coming out because of GCC high. A lot of people are just positioning it and selling it, and that's cool. But in terms of clicking a button and then making the CMMC go away, as much as we desire that, that's really hard to accomplish in practicality. And most of the auditors will like cringe when they see, oh, that's all you did, then you're going to run into problems, right? So that's where I think the root of that question is coming from, because we get it all the time. Like, I'm just going to go buy GCC high and I'm good to go, right? And I don't have to do anything else.
And I could actually add to that a little bit by looking specifically at the CMMC framework and the practices within it. The majority is about behavior, more so than about the specific technical requirements. So it's instilling the culture of cybersecurity into the organization, having leadership take hold of that, have the vision of it, and then pulling and raising the behavior within that organization to meet that compliance requirement. So it's not just checking boxes, it's not just flicking switches digitally, if you will. It's really about how people apply themselves to being secure throughout the organization.
And as an auditor, that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for security actually being baked into business processes as opposed to just being a bolt-on. The entire point of maturing your organization in security posture is to have cybersecurity weaved into really the kind of nuts and bolts of your day-to-day operations. So that's something that we're going to be digging into pretty heavily during these assessments, is to just make sure that that the organization is mature with regards to really baking in security as opposed to just buying technology and throwing technology at it. So I appreciate that you guys are on that that same path. So
yeah.
Awesome. I want to recognize Jeremy Sinoda. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. You had a question here about staff, which is definitely an issue for anybody with a cybersecurity expertise. Jeremy, did you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Hi, thanks. I was just wondering, for somebody who's interested in it, can you kind of describe the path that you're looking for when you're bringing on a new employee? I mean, I know a lot of people get started in the military, but there's cybersecurity 24-week boot camps. There's a computer science degree. There's associate's degrees and certificate programs at community colleges all throughout, for example, Mount Hood Community College in Oregon. So I'm just wondering, you pick from, a broad base of candidates, or is it a specific pool you're choosing from? And thanks again for your expertise and advice.
Yeah,
I can answer. So, Jeremy, out of the 6 folks that we have on our cybersecurity and risk management team, they all have broad experience. I think 2 of our guys are networking guys. They were network administrators, systems administrators at one point or another. So a lot of just systems knowledge and knowing what processes there are on computers and how things work generally helps. But any kind of certificate program, we put our guys through the University of Washington Cybersecurity certificate program. It's a 9 months program that we pay for. I believe it's about $3,200. I've gone through it. A couple of our guys are going through it right now. It's a wonderful program that if you wanted to get into something like this, into cybersecurity, I would recommend something like that. Of course, I'm sure other community colleges and universities offer the same program. I know Stanford offers it, but it's significantly more. It's like $40,000 versus $3,200 at UW. So we chose UW, but any of those programs, as long as you have some basic understanding of computers to just get into the field, will work.
I think it's a big question of build versus buy too. There's definitely a shortage of talent out there right now. So are you willing to put the investment in it and build that knowledge in-house with somebody who's motivated and driven and has a nice firm foundation? Or are you looking to go out and just buy a ready-made skill set to put into your organization? I think what you're looking at there are two different things. Another thing that needs to be taken into account is kind of the soft skills in security, and then the hard kind of technical side of security. If you want a jack of all trades, or one of these unicorns that we're looking for, that can not only interpret the requirements coming down the pipeline, but also go through and implement that end to end on this massive technology stack. Those folks, the 3 people in the world that can do that, are quite pricey. So I think setting expectations properly and figuring out if you want to build versus buy are pretty good kind of first steps in tackling staffing there.
So I'll add my 2 cents here. As a managing director, we hire all the time. In general, I'm looking to hire for passion. I want people with genuine interest in what we do, in risk management, cyber, not necessarily look at it as like, oh, I can make a ton of money. I want them to learn, because I want them to spend time to get better. And if they find a better opportunity, that's fine, because once they learn, they're actually going to impact my organization. We do find a lot of those folks in the military, but the military has a very simple model: train, equip, and deploy. So when it comes to training, as Raj mentioned, and as David mentioned, if you want to build that capacity, any prerequisite technology courses are good. Computer science, cyber, whatever's available is awesome. The other thing, Jeremy, that I couple with, instead of just a technical assessment of what they know, we also use here at Ignite something called Cultural Index. It basically helps us determine, what's the right fit for that kind of individual. What kind of team are they going to be performing really well on, and what kind of coaching and guidance they're going to need to do a really good job. So yeah, both soft and technical skills, and actually have a HR consultant who kind of helps us through those. But definitely looking at those kinds of things in order to figure out that right passionate person that wants to do this. Reading through all this stuff is quite boring for a lot of people. So
awesome. Thank you. No, and let's, I know a lot of our organizations probably don't have cybersecurity staff within their organization. They're either outsourcing that or working with an IT person. Can you talk about who in a company, in a manufacturing company, you'd bring together to be your cybersecurity task force? We've talked a lot about technology, a lot about implementing this within the company culture. Dave, can you talk about kind of the general people you'd like to see come to the table when somebody implements a cybersecurity task force or comes together to do a project? Who are I guess the titles that you want around the table?
Well, titles vary, throughout different companies, but first and foremost, we really need leadership buy-in into the process, because it is cultural, and hopefully it's upper level management, even at the CEO level, to buy into the need to undertake this process, because for many small to medium companies, it's a great endeavor. I mean, there is a huge shift in culture. There's change in their the way that they work with their computer systems. There's probably going to be costs with some of the changes they're going to make. I see, not probably, there will be. So having that vision, that leadership is very important to begin with. Then there's when it comes to CMMC, it's about federal contract information, controlled unclassified information. Those are information types and how to protect those. And IT is very important, but also the people that touch this information and the leadership in that. So it could go into HR, it could go into operations management. If there's an environmental aspect of the company, even potentially environmental, because they have knowledge of what's happening within the organization, and CUI, we call it controlled unclassified information. So it varies per company, but there's a technical side, there's a vision side, there's the personnel side. So it is a team. It is a team. So I guess that's really the type of people we're looking for. Very often it's spearheaded by the technical people with leadership involved.
Great. Anyone else have anything to add? Any of our panelists?
Just to add to what Dave said, HR plays a huge role in onboarding and offboarding employees, contractors. Obviously, their involvement is crucial, and usually at a high level, executive level, and operations for obvious reasons. And then we usually get the CFO or somebody in the higher up in the finance department, and then IT obviously is crucial, but not the most important. We don't play the most important part in the role in providing cybersecurity services or compliance. But from our perspective, HR and finance need to be directly involved in everything we do, because they're in charge of all kinds of things, not just onboarding, offboarding, but training and compliance that comes with that as well.
And if I might, I'd like to jump in and comment, building on something that Raj said, is certainly HR and finance. But what I've found through my career is it's absolutely critical to get executive leadership at the highest levels. Jeff is nodding. It's so for decades now, cybersecurity has been regarded as an IT problem. They just kind of hand it off to a CIO and say, okay, we'll go solve this. But the issue is that, not only does money need to be spent, but culture needs to change, and realistically, risk decisions need to be made. And oftentimes CIOs they're not given the authority to really make those kinds of risk decisions or cost benefit analyses. And so, what I found is that, it's best to get the CEO involved, COO, somebody that can really make those risk decisions, or else people just kind of stare at each other like a junior high school dance, waiting for somebody to make the first move. And honestly, I think that this is part of the reason why we have such a problem with cybersecurity in this industry, is that it's been delegated too far down the stack. So, thanks for letting me share my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, Ace. From our experience, if top level leadership isn't fully supporting it, it stagnates. The decisions aren't made to move it forward, specifically because it needs to be so very much culturally ingrained in the organization to make such a tremendous change.
I want to pose a counter question to especially the cyber folks, because we all agree leadership needs to be involved, but a lot of times what I get told by CEOs is, what questions should I be asking of my CIO, of my leaders, right? So I don't know, Dave, Ace, Raj, anybody, if you guys have any insight into how can leader participate properly in this risk management process, because a lot of times they show up and they don't quite know where they fit in and how they fit in, because a lot of them are not very familiar with technology at all. So cyber becomes kind of a scary term. But have you guys experienced that? That's what I've experienced. The CEO says, Max, I'm going to hand it off to you. I trust you, which I feel good about, but it's not the right thing to do, right? And they ask as well, what are some of the questions I need to be asking as a leader to make sure this gets done the right way?
Well,
I don't know if you guys have experienced that.
I think the first question is, does it have to be done? Is there, a real reason for it to be done or not? That's the number one question that has to be answered. And if leadership isn't convinced, then it won't happen. I mean, it stalls. It's just something on the do list for IT or wherever they delegate it. So, is this something that your business needs to accomplish in order to continue or grow your business? I think that is a fundamental question that needs to be asked. And that the leadership has to ask that of themselves first. And then once they've established that, then it's a follow-up questions. How can we most cost effectively accomplish our end goal in order to achieve this culture?
And I agree with that what I would say to answer your question, Max, and it's an excellent question, because the CEOs are not oftentimes technology experts. So and a lot of times they don't really understand computing. What I would say, if as a CEO, is to say, all right, what business processes do I want to protect? What information and what treasure do I need to protect? So is that intellectual property? Is that people? Is it finances? Is it contracts? Is it reputation? What am I trying to protect? And then have a conversation with the CIO to say, all right, how is technology supporting all of these processes? And say, CIO, or your people know kind of where the proverbial bodies are buried. Like, where are the problems? What are the things that I don't know about? And more to the point, start having a risk decision, a risk conversation. So I could say, all right, I have this business process. How much risk am I really carrying? Right? Is this likely to happen? Is it not likely to happen? And if that isn't, and if those questions are unanswerable, then ask for help from people who are familiar with working through those questions in order to get to clarity. Because without that, that's what leads to the junior high school dance. Is everybody is basically faced with these de facto unanswerable questions, and since they don't know how to answer them, they just don't, and that leaves them vulnerable to the mugging at best.
Right. David, I see you nodding along. Do you have something you wanted to add on that?
No, I think Dave's comment there and Ace's comment of presenting that to senior leadership, they might not be in the weeds on the technical side, but senior leadership understands and manages risk day in and day out. So being able to ask those questions and get metrics around risk is really important. And I think as far as senior leadership is concerned, your expectations of your CIO and your CTO team should be to explain cyber risk to you and create trackable metrics around cyber risk, so that you can understand, as far as management is concerned, that you're basically playing on the same level. Management manages risk. That's ultimately what they do in an organization. So being able to frame cybersecurity not as a cost center that falls under technology, but as part of your overall risk management program, I think that's kind of the key there.
Great, thank you. And I will, for all our very small businesses that may not have a CIO, Chief Information Officer, the IT person, you might substitute that in. I know not everybody has that kind of resource with C-level IT person. So great. Rock, did you have anything to comment on that about getting executive buy-in?
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add, and great feedback from everybody, but the only thing I'd like to add is at the beginning of the engagement, we like to make sure that each department understands the impact that they're going to have, and then that helps us not only have buy-in from that executive, from that department. For example, if HR is sitting there with all of the executives, they may not understand how exactly it impacts them, but we try to break it down from step 1 to step 10 to show them that this is exactly how your department's going to be impacted. And that sometimes helps us get the light bulb to turn on for each of those departments. And then it helps us throughout the engagement, because they're on board and they understand how exactly each of those controls or the majority of those controls are going to impact them.
Great. Thank you so much. It looks like we're up against time here. So I encourage everyone, all our panelists, to chat their contact information if you haven't already done so. A note, you may download your chat. If you just, where you might type a chat, there's 3 little dots to the right. If you click on that, it will give you the opportunity to download or save your chat so you can have all the information that was sent over there. It's a great tool. We will also make a recording of this presentation available to everyone if you'd like to share it with some internal resources, etc. I'm going to bring up the slide deck again here and show the, right, first a thank you to all our panelists again. I'm also going to pull up here, we do have, this is the first of the series of the Cybersecurity Forum. They're going to follow this same format, and we encourage you to come to these with your questions. The next one will be August 19th. We'll have people available to answer questions and make introductions to additional content as well as resources to help you out. So do plan on joining us for that. And I know Aishu had mentioned some legislation and discussion about funding the cybersecurity. I will say on August 17th, we have Congressman Adam Smith will host a congressional roundtable and coffee and conversation event. PNDC will. He's the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. So definitely we can give some feedback on the need for more cybersecurity funding. I do want to remind everyone to reach out to your local MEP as a resource as well. I think Jeff mentioned with Impact Washington, there are some possible grants available. I know Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition has helped our members uncover opportunities to maybe help with funding on this. So I really appreciate everybody joining us here today and our expertise for giving their time. Jeff, Carol, am I missing anything? Any other reminders?
I don't think so. Thanks for participating. This is really great forum. There's a lot of interesting comments came up today that I think are on a lot of people's minds. So I think there will be more in the future. So I see some familiar faces here from previous webinars. It is informative. It's an ever-changing area. So tune in next time.
Great. And we'll send everybody out a survey afterwards and would appreciate your feedback on other topics you'd like to see covered.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day. That concludes today's program.